been this evolution. I mean, the last administration was going to mandate electric vehicles, and now you see on the far left some efforts to go after electric vehicles. It's quite something.
It is ironic. I mean, it seems like the most ironic outcome is the most likely.
No sense of irony, these people. That was Elon Musk talking last night to Bret Baier on Special Report on the Fox News Channel in a very lengthy, I think it was like 37-minute group interview with Elon Musk plus 7 representatives of the Department of Government Efficiency. The Democrat Party is, of course, against government efficiency. I suspect they're against Led Zeppelin, too. Because if it's good, the left wants to destroy it. By the way, the Vice President of the United States is, I believe right now, he may have arrived in Greenland. If he hasn't arrived yet, he's en route to Greenland. And I've got a kind of an amusing President Trump soundbite that I want to share with you on that topic, too. But I do want to get to DOGE from last night. The New York Fake Times, flying to Greenland, Vance is visiting a place that doesn't want him. Well, that's not true. You look at the polls out of Greenland, there may be some who don't want him to visit, but there are many that do. The New York Times doesn't want him to visit because the New York Times is part of the firebombing, organ harvesting, left-wing gauntlet. Vice President J.D. Vance's trip to an island that President Trump wants to, quote, get, end quote. Now, that's not a complete thought or a complete sentence, is that? It's a 3-letter, 1-syllable word that the New York Times put in quotation marks in their little sub-headline. He wants to get. Yeah, well, let me say, maybe you could put in quotation marks, the New York Times wants to get Donald Trump. So it wants to get the Vice President J.D. Vance's trip to an island that President Trump wants to get is a scaled-back version of the original White House plan. Quote, he's not welcome, end quote, one Greenlander said. The New York Times went there just to get a quote from one Greenlander to say he's not welcome because that's our news media. I like the use of the word get in quotation marks. That's award-winning journalism there. These people, lots and lots of mental issues. I am telling you. Yeah, there is a story that broke yesterday. I barely got to it on the radio because there's too much stuff to get to, but the United Press International, UPI, with at least 6 killed in Red Sea after, quote, recreational, end quote, submarine sinks. That's not very good. At least 6 people. It's a vacation in Egypt. And, hey, they've got mini sub rides in the Suez Canal. That could be fun. Keyword there, could be fun. At least 6 people were killed, and dozens were injured Thursday after a recreational tourist submarine sank in the Red Sea off of the sprawling Egyptian beach resort of Hurghada, 280 miles south of Cairo. Sorry, Red Sea, not the Suez. Emergency services rescued 29 people. Pretty big submarine, I've got to say. 29 people from the stricken vessel, which was carrying at least 40 passengers when it sank at around 10 a.m. local time, about a half mile from the Hurghada harbor, with the Russian embassy in Cairo confirming all were its citizens. Russian citizens. Hey, vacation in Egypt. This is going to be great. Hey, they set up a submarine ride for all of us. Isn't that great? Rescued 29 people. 6 died, at least. They're still not entirely sure. Children were among those killed, and 9 people were injured, 4 of them critically, after the submarine was involved in some sort of a collision before sinking. safety counts. You gotta. That's in Egypt. They're not known for the safety measures that are taken. Mm-hmm. The BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, reported that the vessel, the submarine, belonged to Hurghada, the resort, the Hurghada-based Sindbad submarines. Not even Sinbad, but Sindbad submarines. The company operates 2 of only 14 real recreational submarines in the world, offering underwater tours down to 80 feet for up to 44 people. Now, it reminded me, I got it to my best girl and I, we went to Antarctica a couple of years ago, and we were aboard a ship, of course, out of Ushuaia in Tierra del Fuego, across the very rough and ready seas to Antarctica, out of the southern tip of South America. And we boarded a ship, a seaborne ship, in Ushuaia. And when we got to Antarctica, the ship we were on had a mini sub. It only took, I think, 4 people plus a pilot. And I was able to get, hey, you want to go on the sub? Well, heck yeah, sure, I want to go on the sub. So got aboard the mini sub off of the ship, the seaborne ship, and, under the polar ice cap. And we had harpoon guns and got a couple of whales, dragged them to shore. We didn't really get any whales. I think that's frowned upon. You go to beaches, and there are lots of whale bones piled up all over the place, but that's from a long time ago. But that was a great submarine thing. I spent a few days on a Los Angeles-class fast attack submarine too, U.S. Navy, but you don't have to worry about anything there. It's a U.S. Navy fast attack, Los Angeles-class fast attack submarine. That's no big deal. But it's funny, we were trading texts today with the 2 friends that came with us to Antarctica, and we were doing, a little joke, little shticks, because when you're going in these mini subs, and it was right after that mini sub going down to the Titanic had crashed and, everybody was killed. That was a terrible thing. And they're like, really? You want to go down in the sub after? It's like, yeah, sure. Yeah, of course. That already happened once. It's like the world according to Garp. The plane already hit the house. Now this is a house to move into. Yeah, but that's a pretty amazing story. The mini sub, and all Russians. The Russians just can't catch a break ever in history. Amazing stuff. Let's get back to the DOGE. The DOGE from yesterday. That's a wild story. So many amazing stories to get to. I'm telling you. Let me tell you. Yeah, there's another one. There's just one more Democrat story before we get to the DOGE. The story from National Review magazine, nationalreview.com. Colorado Dems, that's Democrats, Colorado Democrats push taxpayer-funded abortion for poor women to save the state money. And then in quotation marks, birth is more expensive. And they go around calling everybody else Nazis. Isn't that amazing? They're chasing Jews off of campus. Hey, if we abort all the kids, then it'll cost us less. That
savings comes from the averted births that will not occur because abortions happened instead. So a birth is more expensive than an abortion.
Suddenly they're thrifty when it comes to killing. You know how the left is. And they do harvest organs. They do harvest the organs. They floss with them. Colorado Democrats are touting a new reason why the state's taxpayers should pay for low-income women's abortions. It's how they get the minorities to wipe out the minorities. Not only would it support, listen to this, equity and fairness in health care. They call abortion health care. Isn't that great? It's a medical procedure in which it's guaranteed one life is snuffed out. They call it health care. Equity and fairness in health care. I want to know the racial composition of the Colorado abortion practices there. That's right. Equity and fairness in health care, they say. But aborting more babies is good fiscal policy, too. A birth is more expensive than an abortion, Colorado House Speaker Julie McCluskey said at a committee hearing this week, touting a legislative fiscal analysis that claims taxpayer-funded abortions could save the state $500,000 or more annually. $500,000. That's $500,000. Huh, pretty good. How many abortions did that pay for? We had these people, I'm telling you. So McCluskey is one of 4 Democratic co-sponsors of the Senate bill, which would require Colorado taxpayers to pay for abortions for women, sure, naturally, because, you know, the Democrats, they love it, and they're happy to spend other people's money. On a federal level, it's illegal because of the Hyde Amendment for tax dollars to be used to fund abortions. The Democrats find all kinds of creative ways to work around that, and they mostly snuff out minority babies, and they do harvest their organs. So Julie McCloskey, she's the Democrat there. They're a bloodthirsty lot. No wonder they love Hamas and the rest of the gang. Just amazing stuff. Yeah. They've also got Transgender Day of Visibility coming up. How many, you think you have any transgender abortions? Last year, you may remember that the Transgender Day of Visibility fell on Easter Sunday. And remember, Joe Biden's White House sent out a tweet on Easter Sunday honoring Transgender Day of Visibility, but they forgot to mention anything about Easter Sunday because Joe Biden's such a good Catholic, you know. And they were all angry about it. The New York Times last year, a transgender holiday, this is the New York Times headline, a transgender holiday, is that what we call it, a transgender holiday? Fell on Easter. Republicans lashed out at Biden. And the New York Times was very angry. How many, it says a transgender holiday. How many transgender holidays are there? How many cross-dressers are there in the Democratic Party? Aren't you people amazing? Man, oh, Manischewitz, I'm telling you. All right, I'm doing all these stories, and they're great stories, but I haven't gotten yet to the DOGE people. I still need to get to the DOGE people. In the meantime, Michael, let's take another phone call because all the nice people, all the good people out there. Let's go to Rod, calling from the great state of Arkansas. Rod, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Good morning, sir. It's an honor. I got a problem with the Geneva Conventions being pulled on because you got to be at war with the country, and they've got to be a signatory of the convention. If we're at war, then Trump can deport everybody he wants to because the Alien Enemy Act is now in full force. So it's a catch-22, right?
Well,
so
you know,
you have the conventions or anyway.
Oh, so, were it not for double standards, liberals would have no standards at all, right, Rod? And they just want to lynch everybody because they're not liberals, they're the left. And they're not protecting immigrants. They're protecting gang members, MS-13 gang members, Tren de Aragua from Venezuela gang members. Rod, the Democrats are on the wrong side of everything.
But on both sides of everything, it depends on which way it swings. I mean, it's like a transgendered opinion. It's this one day, it's that the other day. And we could always sell pay-per-view to the transgender abortions to see what the hell it is.
That is a fact. That is fun. Yeah, Rod, I got to tell you. They're crazy. These people are the left. They are the Soviet Union living among us. They are the Democratic Party. And they're insane. I mean, from the gender thing to the abortion thing to Hamas and Tren de Aragua and MS-13 and open borders. And if you're sane, they're against you. That's kind of the macro problem at this point, Rod. And Rod, thank you very much for calling in today. The honor is all mine. I appreciate your calling in, and I appreciate your listening. Thank you very much. And paying attention and being aware of the madness that the left has unleashed in the United States of America under the alleged umbrella of liberalism. There is nothing liberal about any of this. That's a fact. Thank you, Rod. You know that the all-new third-generation Eden Pure Thunderstorm air purifier has finally arrived, and And the new version builds on the incredible success of the previous versions, and they quickly became big hits, 5-star reviews all over Al Gore's amazing internet, and a bestseller in no time. The new Thunderstorm uses two technologies that studies have proven help to kill up to 99.9% of bacteria and viruses floating in the air. You know, it's cold and flu season. It removes dust and pet stuff and smoke and a whole lot more from the air that you breathe, and helps get rid of any odor. Odors, I'm telling you, no filters to have to buy and replace over and over again either. Self-contained unit. You can hold one in your hand just like this. Now, I got to tell you, this week only, you buy one Thunderstorm, and you get one for free. No matter how many you buy, you get an equal number for free. You buy 5, you get 5 for free. You put one in your bedroom, the teenager's room, the basement, any place you like to breathe clean, fresh air. All you have to do is go to EdenPureDeals.com and use the discount code ChrisBogo, like buy one, get one, ChrisBogo, to get one free. That's EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ChrisBogo. Yeah. All right, now I'm Scout Center. I'm going to get to the Elon Musk and DOGE people on television last night explaining all kinds of amazing stuff that the news media, corrupt as they are, trying to shoot down on behalf of their party.
I want to be the first trans woman to have an abortion.
Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at WashingtonTimes.com/Chris. Had a lot of DOGE to get to, a lot of good DOGE. Christine Nome might have violated the Geneva Conventions. Really? Are they prisoners of war? Pretty amazing media we have here, isn't it? As it is. Now, I mentioned that this is something that has the Democrats very angry. Trump targets D.C. in latest executive order establishing safe and beautiful task force. You want to make D.C. safe and beautiful? I live in D.C. I'm in favor of that. The Democrats are against it because they're here to make it crime-ridden and ugly and covered in graffiti and so on. President Trump signed a new executive order targeting D.C. You mean hoping to improve D.C.? The order establishes the D.C. Safe and Beautiful Task Force, which reportedly aims to target crime, immigration, meaning illegal immigration. You know, half the city, they're from other countries. We have embassies and all kinds of things here. Our news media, so ridiculous. What, less crime, less illegal, fewer illegal aliens, and less graffiti? As to leave the homeless on the street to die? Well, we played the audio of the police in Las Vegas, Nevada, telling about the Communist Party Democrat who loves Hamas and hates the Jews, firebombing and shooting up Tesla vehicles in Las Vegas. That was done about 10 days ago. It was 10 days ago, March 18th, that they attacked. Well, and tomorrow is the Democrats have orchestrated, violent communists that they are. The Democrats have organized for tomorrow the Let's All Hate Tesla Day across the country and around the world. But last night, Brett Baer on the Fox News Channel on Special Report had a panel discussion with Brett Baer and Elon Musk as the two primaries, and then plus 7 members of the Department of Government Efficiency, all of whom are individually very successful, very bright people that they're sacrificing their time and walking away from, for the most part, walking away from their businesses to come and try to help the United States get back on track fiscally, be responsible. But the Department of Government Efficiency head, Elon Musk, and 7 members of the team shed light on the department's cost-cutting mission. Democrats are against cost-cutting. in an exclusive sit-down interview with Special Report on Thursday. Now, let me go to, let's go to soundbite number 11. It's 11. Turn it up to 11. And Brett Baer with Elon Musk and Team DOGE. What is the whole point of this DOGE thing anyway?
What are the budgetary savings goals, and how much do you think you've achieved so far?
Our goal is to reduce the deficit by $1 trillion. From a nominal deficit of $2 trillion to try to cut the deficit in half to $1 trillion, or looked at it in total federal spending to drop the federal spending from $7 trillion to $6 trillion.
Wow. See, we're adding $2 trillion a year to the deficit. Now, what is it? I like to talk about this. If we start paying off the national debt, $36 trillion at $1 a second, 36 trillion seconds is more than 1 million years. Jesus Christ himself walked the earth about 2,000 years ago. So add 998,000 years to that, and you get to 1 million years, and that's how long it would take to pay off the national debt if we were paying it off at $1 a second. The Democrats want to make sure that we don't pay it off at $1 a second or at any other rate of speed. Elon Musk, no slouch, last night.
We want to reduce the spending by eliminating waste and fraud, reduce the spending by 15%, which seems really quite achievable. The government is not efficient, and there's a lot of waste and fraud. So we feel confident that a 15% reduction can be done without affecting any of the critical government services.
The government is not efficient? Wait a minute. I can't believe that. Again, the Washington Post with the fake headline today, and it's their lead story, and it's a lie. HHS to erase, I like the use of the word erase, 20,000 jobs, reducing offices. By the way, the Washington Post just finished a round of layoffs at the Washington Post, where the Washington Post laid off large numbers of people, I think more than 100 people, and they don't employ 4 million people or whatever it is. What do we have, 2.5 million people? Because they explained, and we're going to get to that too, they explained that we have more credit cards, about twice as many credit cards for government employees than we have government employees. So every janitor and bus driver and everything else, but amazing stuff. And the Washington Post says 20,000 jobs will be erased at HHS. And they don't tell you how many employees HHS has, but says that the moves will save the department about $1.8 billion annually, according to a news release, by reducing staff from 82,000 to 62,000. But wait a minute. Half of those 20,000 employees took buyouts and early retirement, while 10,000 will lose their jobs. So the headline says 20,000 jobs will be erased, but they offered buyouts early on, and 10,000 HHS employees took the buyouts. So those aren't jobs to be erased. Those are people that got buyouts. And again, NBC News is busy laying people off. The Washington Post busy laying people off. CNN busy laying people off. And they're outraged here that the largest employer in the country, the government, might actually reduce the size of the government and the number of government employees. How dare we? All right? The Washington Post got it wrong. The Washington Times has the correct headline. Kennedy, meaning the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy, Jr., Kennedy announces 10,000 employees will be eliminated. I like that, that eliminated, there you got eliminated. And over here, they're erased like that. HHS to consolidate 28 divisions, cut offices, and some of the stuff I heard yesterday from the DOGE. So let's get back to the DOGE people because they were saying all kinds of amazing things. Brett Baer asking about this 130-day temporary government employee timeline.
You technically are a special government employee, and You're supposed to be 130 days. Are you going to continue past that, or do you think that's what you're going to do? Or?
Well, I think we will have accomplished most of the work required to reduce the deficit by $1 trillion within that time frame. We actually want to be careful in the cuts, so we want to measure twice, if not thrice, and cut once. Actually, that is our approach. They may characterize it as shooting from the hip, but it is anything but that.
Brett Baer set it up by saying, in carpentry, you're supposed to measure twice, cut once, but they accuse you of, using Molotov cocktails like their Democrats are doing with vehicles with the word Tesla on them. And he said, well, rather than measure twice, cut once, maybe we should measure 3 times. And cuts in, using a scalpel because Elon Musk was gifted a chainsaw by, who was it, the president of Argentina? Milei. You lie. And he had some fun with it because he's a fun guy. Elon Musk on, hey, how's the government doing? Is there a lot of waste? Is there a lot of fraud? Is there a lot of abuse? Because the Democrats are big supporters of waste, fraud, and abuse.
The sheer amount of waste and fraud in the government, it is astonishing. It's mind-blowing. We routinely encounter wastes of $1 billion or more, casually.
Routinely. We routinely encounter waste of $1 billion or more, or fraud. And by the way, the Democrats, corruptniks, lefties, that they are other people's money, they've set up these gravy trains for themselves and their allies. Stacey Abrams, here's $2 billion for you for your environmental work. She's never done environmental work. Here's $2 billion. And these are money laundering operations because she then disperses the money to left-wing groups that are doing the left-wing work of the left-wing Democrat Party. People need to go to prison for this. Brett Baer.
Some people say this shouldn't take a rocket scientist. Steve Davis, you are a rocket scientist.
Used to be.
So how did you end up here?
The reason I'm here, which is probably for many, is that I think the goal is incredibly inspiring. I think most of the taxpayers in the country would agree that in order to have the country going bankrupt would be a very bad thing, and therefore the country going not bankrupt is a good thing. That all of us are willing to kind of put our lives on hold in order to do. I think the thing that's special right now is we actually believe there's a chance to succeed.
Wow. Well, it's never been tried. That's one of the things about this effort is it's an experiment. It's never, hey, we could make the government more efficient. Nah, forget about that. The government has universally said, nah, that's why we're $36 trillion in debt. Amazing stuff. Sean Davis, rocket scientist. I think once a rocket scientist, always a rocket scientist.
The amount of issues that were with the Social Security system are enormous. As an example, there are over 15 million people that are over the age of 120 that are marked as alive in the Social Security system.
That doesn't necessarily mean that checks are being mailed to them, but you could. And this was one of the fun things that Sean Davis, who's only a rocket scientist, and the credit cards for government employees. This my best girl and I were watching this, and this got our attention.
There are in the federal government around 4.6 million credit cards for around 2.3 to 2.4 million employees. This doesn't make sense.
Right.
And so one of the things all of the teams have worked on is we've worked with the agencies and said, do you need all of these credit cards? Are they being used? Can you tell us physically where they are?
Does every government employee from janitor to cabinet secretary have 2 government credit cards in their wallets or their pockets or their smocks or wherever they keep them? Isn't that amazing? Another member of the Department of Government Efficiency, a guy, and again, all very successful people in their real lives who are sacrificing to contribute to our nation and try to make some good, bring some good, some change. Joe Gebbia is the DOGE member's name.
It's an injustice to civil servants who are subjected to these processes that are older than the age of half the people watching your show tonight. So we really believe that the government can have an Apple Store-like experience, beautifully designed, great user experience, modern systems.
An Apple Store-like experience when you're dealing with the government. These guys they're trying to bring private sector sensibilities to the government, and the Democrats are willing to detonate their suicide vests in order to stop it from happening. A DOGE member, Aram Moghadassi, he's a Persian American, and on the DOGE, trying to do the right thing against the Democrat Party's opposition.
The first thing that got me really excited about DOGE was learning basically the state of government computers. By some estimates, government IT costs about $100 billion, and it's funding systems that are over 50 years old.
Funding systems that are over 50 years old. They told, I got to tell you, they were telling, what was it? HHS has 700 computer systems, and they don't talk to each other. And they had more than 70, they have currently more than 70, chief information officers, CIO, more than 70 in one government department. And like, I'm the chief information officer, I'm the CIO. And wow, where? At HHS, the Department of Health and Human Services. Really, you're the chief information officer. And then they don't tell you that you're one of 72 chief information officers in the same government department. Why would that be a problem? Another member of the DOGE, Tyler Hassan, talking about the Department of Interior. And each of these guys, they're assigned to different government departments, and they're trying to find out what's going on there, and the Democrats are trying to stop them. This is Tyler Hassan.
Under the Biden administration, there was no departmental oversight within the Department of Interior whatsoever. None. We are now reviewing every single contract, every single grant, and when things come to my attention that don't make sense, I'm bringing them to Secretary Burgum.
And the former governor, and he's a good guy. He's a centimillionaire himself, an incredibly successful man himself. But the Democrat Party, they are doing everything they can to stop this from working, to stop it from taking effect. Just amazing. Let's take another phone call, Michael. Let's go to Alan calling from Chicago, Illinois. Alan, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Hey, good morning, Chris. You know, California is really a crazy place, but you know, California has 42% of all the EVs. And EV batteries are the biggest pollutant in the state of California. You know, if I lived in California, I'd be pretty concerned that violence will break out border to border, because if you take Texas and Florida together, they have 1 1/3 times the population of California. They only have 40% of the EVs. So California is really going to become the target for these radicals, because that's where, you know, it's a target-rich environment.
Well, it's California. They've completely lost their minds, right? And if they're not being burned out, they're being chased out by gangs from some beep-hole country somewhere. And I got to tell you, I lived in California for 7 years in Santa Barbara, and it was a great place to live then. And there more and more people are fleeing California, usually for Texas or Florida, someplace where sane people live. And boy, I got to tell you, and they've got to be in a panic, Alan, because now they've got all these electric vehicles, but the Democrat Party has declared war on electric vehicles, well, at least on Tesla electric vehicles, right?
Well, if you can identify a Tesla from other cars, I mean, an EV is an EV. Don't they hate things equally? I mean, my God, are we being prejudiced in this matter?
That's a fair point, a fair question. Amazing stuff, yeah. And it's 4 days ago, California now has nearly 50% more electrical vehicle plug-ins than gas pumps, because they're making the conversion, but they're doing it for political reasons and not for practical, pragmatic reasons, for economic reasons, for not even for environmental reasons. They're doing it all for political reasons, you know. They're the Democrat Party, and they're out of their minds, if they have minds, completely berserk. And they've been doing this for quite some time, for years now. buying up the electric cars, and now they've got to burn them all, which is kind of crazy because that's burning and put smoke in the air, right? And that's why you get an electric vehicle, so you don't put smoke in the air. And now they're setting them on fire because they're effectively our own personal Hamas, the Democratic Party.
You've got to help us. We've tried nothing, and we're all out of ideas.
Now, ABC News just got done laying off 300 people. The Washington Post just got done laying off more than 100 people. CNN, more than 100 people. And they don't employ 2.4 million people. These are much more significant percentages. But last night on the Fox News channel, one of the DOGEmen, Anthony Armstrong, talked about, he said, he keeps seeing in the news media that the Democrats are going crazy. Oh, no, you're laying all these. And the Washington Post says 20,000 people, but 10,000 have already taken a buyout, and they're at home enjoying their free paychecks for the next 8 months or so. But here's Anthony Armstrong on the brutal cuts in government.
You've heard a lot of news about rifts, about people getting fired. At this moment in time, less than 0.15, not 1.5, less than 0.15 of the federal workforce has actually been given a RIF notice. So
they're selected if they're leaving.
It is
basically almost no one's gotten fired. That's what we're saying.
Elon Musk at the end, basically almost no one's gotten fired. We're talking about 0% of the federal government workforce, 0.15%. That is, right, 0.15%. It's not quite a tenth of 1%, but we're getting close of the workforce there. I think ABC News laid off a much greater percentage of their workforce. CNN, the Washington Post, laid off a much greater percentage of their workforces. And the federal government, which is supposed to expand always, which is why we're $36 trillion in debt. And these guys are talking about keeping the country from bankrupting ourselves. Imagine that. Looking at saving us $1 trillion a year. And it's not like it's money back in our pockets. We're just not adding it to the debt so that people in their 20s are stuck with it, which is what the Democrats want.